For over a century, being born in Canada meant being Canadian. No applications, no interviews, just life, and the promise that this land would call you its own. But that promise is changing. A new federal bill, passed quietly, buried in bureaucracy, is rewriting the definition of citizenship. The days of automatic birthright are ending, replaced by a new system of conditions, proof, and state approval. The government says it's about modernization. Critics call it the most significant citizenship rollback in Canadian history. Today on Truth North, we uncover what the new law really does, who it affects, and why your birth certificate may no longer guarantee your Canadian identity. Chapter 1. The End of an Era. For decades, Canada was one of the few developed nations with unconditional jus soli, the right of the soil. If you were born here, you were Canadian. Simple, clear and fair. That principle stood since 1947, when the first Canadian Citizenship Act came into effect after Confederation. It reflected an ideal, Canada as a place of equality and belonging, not privilege or ancestry. But behind closed doors, policymakers began rethinking it years ago. They saw rising cases of birth tourism, temporary visitors giving birth on Canadian soil for citizenship advantages. The numbers were small, a few thousand cases per year, but politically potent. By 2025, public opinion had shifted. Polls showed more than 70% of Canadians believed citizenship should be tied to at least one parent's legal status. The government, sensing opportunity, acted. The new reform quietly slipped through Parliament under the banner of immigration modernization and responsibility. But hidden inside was a change that would alter citizenship itself. Chapter 2. What the new law says under the revised Birthright citizenship regulation, only babies born to at least one citizen or permanent resident automatically qualify for citizenship. Children born to temporary visitors, foreign workers, or undocumented migrants will no longer receive automatic citizenship. Instead, their parents must apply, proving legal residency, employment, and demonstrated connection to Canada. That phrase, demonstrated connection, is where the controversy begins. It's undefined, vague, and open to interpretation. What counts as connection? Months of residence? A tax record? A local address? The law doesn't say. Immigration lawyers warn that thousands of children could be left in limbo, technically stateless, until paperwork clears. The government insists the goal is fairness, preventing misuse of the system. But buried within the bill's fiscal appendix is another motive: cost control. Officials estimate the change will save up to $35 million annually by reducing access to benefits for non-resident newborns. Citizenship, once a birthright, has become a budget line. Chapter 3. Who really gets affected? On paper, the law targets foreign visitors. In practice, it touches far more lives. In provinces like Ontario, Alberta, and British Columbia, tens of thousands of foreign workers, students, and refugee claimants give birth each year while waiting for permanent status. Under the new rules, those children will not be recognized automatically as Canadians. If a mother's work permit expires before approval, her newborn's citizenship may be denied. If a father's asylum claim is pending, his child's legal identity will hang in bureaucratic uncertainty. Hospitals already worry about a new wave of paperwork and confusion. Doctors ask, do we deliver care first or verify legal standing? Birth, once purely human, is becoming administrative. These are not isolated cases. They're families who live, work, and pay taxes in Canada, yet whose children may now be foreigners in the land of their birth. Chapter 4. The government's justification. The federal government defends the reform with a familiar argument: fairness and integrity. Officials say the old system invited abuse, tourists exploiting the law, foreign nationals using hospitals as gateways to citizenship. They claim the new approach aligns Canada with modern standards. echoing policies in the UK, Australia, and Germany. But the comparison is misleading. Those countries pair restrictions with clear safety nets to prevent statelessness. Canada's law does not. The government promises a streamlined application for affected children, yet processing could take months, even years. During that time, a child born in Canada could lack access to healthcare, education, or passports. The same government that once promised every child counts now asks infants to prove eligibility. Chapter 5. Political motives beneath the surface. Every law has a logic, but every reform has a motive. Politically, this law is convenient. It signals toughness on immigration without alienating citizens directly. It appeals to populist frustrations while avoiding the deeper issues: housing costs, healthcare, and wage stagnation. By spotlighting citizenship fraud, the government redirects anger from broken policy toward vulnerable families. Inside Parliament, the reform passed with minimal debate, overshadowed by economic headlines and global crises. But within the corridors of power, this was strategic timing. Birthright reform is not just about paperwork. It's about shaping a new definition of Canadian, one that's smaller, narrower, and more controllable. For decades, Canada's identity was expansive, rooted in welcome and inclusion. Now, a quiet nationalism is taking hold, not one of flags, but of filters. Chapter 6. Faith, Belonging, and the Moral Debate. Citizenship is more than a document. It's a covenant between a nation and its people, a promise of equality before law and God. Faith communities are beginning to speak out. Churches, mosques, temples, and synagogues across Canada have started holding forums on what they call the moral cost of exclusion. They argue that birthright is not just legal, it's ethical, that a child born here is not a foreigner, but part of the nation's story. Religious leaders warn that the new law risks dividing families into classes: approved and unapproved, deserving and denied. Even some secular voices agree. A country that makes babies apply for citizenship has lost sight of compassion. Faith-based charities expect a surge in requests for legal help and social aid as families navigate the new rules. Behind the legal language lies a spiritual question: who belongs when belonging is conditional? Chapter 7. Economic and social fallout. At first glance, saving $35 million in benefits sounds efficient. But zoom out. Without automatic birthright, Canada could face bureaucratic bottlenecks. Hospitals, immigration offices, and provincial registries will all require new layers of verification. Processing backlogs already exceed 2.2 million applications nationwide. Adding newborns to that queue could strain the system further. Then comes the social cost. When children grow up in the only country they've ever known but are told they don't belong, alienation festers. Sociologists warn that this kind of exclusion fuels resentment, the quiet kind that corrodes patriotism. Citizenship isn't just about law, it's about trust. Once citizens start to feel that their country values legality over humanity, loyalty begins to fracture. The irony? A law meant to protect Canadian identity may end up weakening it. Chapter 8. The Road Ahead. The new law is already reshaping lives. Parents are lining up at Service Canada with infants in arms, unsure how to fill forms that didn't exist last year. Legal aid clinics report spikes in requests. Hospitals are quietly lobbying for clarification. Some provinces may push back, arguing the change violates equal rights provisions in their charters. Meanwhile, advocacy groups are preparing court challenges. But because the bill invokes partial notwithstanding clause protection, their path is narrow. The real test won't be legal. It'll be social. How Canadians respond, with empathy or indifference, will define the next decade of national identity. Citizenship should unite us, not divide us. It should affirm belonging, not question birth. When a child born in Canada must prove they deserve to be Canadian, something deeper than law is breaking. our moral compass. This isn't just about immigration. It's about identity. It's about who gets to call this country home. As politicians debate budgets and reforms, families across Canada are left wondering whether their newborns belong to the nation or to paperwork. This is Truth North Canada First. We stand for fairness, conscience, and the Canada that never asked where you came from, only who you chose to become. Stay awake, stay aware, stay free.